Today we have another of our Deep Trouble series. Deep Trouble is an exclusive series only found here on Adventure Rider Radio. It's stories from riders that have experienced catastrophes, breakdowns, being lost, injured, or other issues that have led them into deep trouble. And of course, no one wants to run into deep trouble, but if there was no threat to dodge, no line in the sand to skirt, no precipitous edge to crawl up to, there would be no adventure. And because adventure lives in that gray zone between safety and danger, it's about riding the gray zone, riding in that gray zone, your gray zone, whatever that is. And the Deep Trouble series is about helping you ride that gray zone without having to cross into danger by hearing stories from those that have fallen into trouble, struggled, and returned with lessons for all of us, and how to deal with it if you should find yourself in deep trouble. On this episode, a border crossing gone wrong, leading into a whirlwind of trouble and deceit with officials and caught up in an organized criminal ring at the border of Panama. What went wrong and how they were forced to make a hasty escape to save themselves coming up. I'm Jim Martin. This is Adventure Rider Radio. Stay with us. We got a good one for you.
Sam Manikin, Simon,
Austin Vince,
Simon Pavey,
Helge Pedersen,
Charlie Bowman,
Chris Birch,
Elizabeth Martin,
Clinton Smoke,
Bernard Smith,
and you're listening to Adventure Rider Radio.
Adventure Rider Radio.
Best Rest Product is the maker of the Cycle Pump, the best tire inflator for motorcyclists. It'll inflate your flat tire in less than 3 minutes. Made in the USA, comes with a lifetime warranty. They also distribute Googletech filters, cyclepump.com. It's wind pressure that powers the Moto Breeze chain oiler. No electrical or vacuum connections. It delivers the oil to a felt pad on your swing arm. No nozzles near your sprockets. 1 ounce of oil gets 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers. Get more miles from your chain and sprockets. motobreeze.com. And Green Chili Adventure Gear offers American-made, heavy-duty luggage systems for all types of motorcycles. You can turn any dry bag into luggage using their strapping system. And of course, Green Chili Adventure Gear is tested in extreme weather and terrain to withstand the abuse that adventure riding gives it. Tough, reliable gear. greenchiliadv.com.
I'm about to speak with Spencer Conway in Mexico. Spencer has been traveling around the world for, I think, about 14 years. He and his wife, Kathy, travel together, two up. They film the adventures for television. Now, although Spencer and Kathy have had to deal with many kinds of deep trouble, this one was one that actually kind of blindsided them. While entering Panama, they unknowingly became a target for a high-level sort of organized crime unit that demanded money and even threatened Spencer's life. Now, to record this episode, Spencer and I had an incredibly difficult time connecting. This connection or trouble connection dragged things out over several weeks. And this is what you hear us talking about here.
And so, yeah, we've had heavy storms again and all that nonsense.
That's crazy. No, it's not your fault. Don't be sorry. It's just one of those things that happens. But boy, oh boy. It's incredible, isn't it, what we had to go through for this? And then when we started off with you not quite making the connection, I thought, oh, no.
And basically, I mean, for the listeners, it was ridiculous because we couldn't get a line through, first of all. And then we had massive storms here. We've had cars going off bridges, and they've got a new motorway between Oaxaca and here. And that's all been washed away in both directions. We've had tarantulas, scorpions, the whole works in the house. And then when I was supposed to meet up with you again, I got dengue, didn't I?
So what did you end up going to the hospital for that?
Yeah. You see, it's really strange because, people say to you, oh, you've had dengue. You know, if you've had it once, you don't get it again. It's similar to malaria. It's a mosquito-borne disease, but there are 4 different strains. So being Spencer, I managed to get one of, a good 6 months back. And this time I got it again, but a different strain. And actually, my media buddy who's been helping me today, he's got it as well. So what a bunch.
So do you get this fever just for your videos that you do for making for television?
Oh, Jim, I knew you'd say something like that. But you saw my photo. I looked about 120, didn't I?
Yeah. You definitely look bad. But before that, you were talking about the monsoons. You sent me a photograph of the water pouring down through the stairwell into the house and everything absolutely drenched out. What was going on there?
Yeah, that was into our lounge actually. So I mean, you can see that like it was just brickwork and that they're modifying that area, but they've left an huge open window for about 2 years now. So things go slowly. So so we had that coming down. It filled up the lounge, but everything's good now.
And where are you right now?
We're in Mexico again still, but since I last spoke to you, we've done 22,000 kilometers.
Holy, wow! Where did you go?
We've been to every single part of Mexico and Guatemala and Belize.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, no, really, I'm totally Mexican. I've even got a mustache and a sombrero as I'm sitting here.
And you can speak Spanish fluently?
I can.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, which is a huge bonus. Well, I did it for a year at school, second school, and then obviously I went around South and Central America and managed to pick it up and become pretty fluent. Yeah.
So that has to be, speaking Spanish has to make a huge difference in making real intimate connections with people you meet along the road.
No, sure. It's massive. I mean, that's one regret that Kathy has. She speaks Afrikaans and Zulu and English and Dutch, but she didn't manage to pick up on the Spanish. And yeah, I think you miss out a lot, because when you're traveling a lot and you end up just having very basic conversations,
Mm-hmm.
Do you have water? It's very hot today, et cetera, but you can't really get in deep, can you? Because you just don't have the vocabulary.
And doesn't that kind of make you feel a little bit isolated when you're doing that for a long period of time?
Sure. I mean, obviously going through African countries, that was a lot easier because what people don't realize, a lot of Africa, they actually speak English, whereas in South and Central, it's not as common. So it's pretty important. And then, you think you're getting on top of things and you go to Brazil, and Brazil is just, Portuguese is this amazing sounding language, but it's very difficult to get to grips with.
Mm. You mentioned 22,000 kilometers you've done since we last spoke. Now, this is what you're attempting to do is circumnavigate every continent, correct?
That's correct. But Jim, really, to be totally honest, we got caught up here. I started doing off-road training, advanced motorcycle training, actually from beginners to advanced. While we were here during COVID, I don't know if you remember that mm-hmm. time, that problem, and we got stuck here. I got really hooked on it, and now the police and the army in Mexico want me to train them in motorcycling, off-road and on-road, high speed, all that sort of thing, safety and basic maintenance. But I'm ready to move on. I'm getting itchy feet. We've been here a good few years now.
You mentioned, I'll go back to that again, 22,000 kilometers since the last time we talked. You're still on your original bike.
Yeah, well, I've got two bikes, but I think I told you that last time. Yeah, I've got the 2009 XT 660 Tenere, and that's done 225,000 or something like that, 250,000. Mm-hmm. And I've got another one from 2013, which we've been using around Mexico as well. And we've just done over 40,000 on that one.
Wow.
So, so really excellent. The aim is to send the original Africa one back to Europe, and so that we can use it for shows, like the ABR and the Overland show and the big shows, so they can stick it on a stage, and then we'll stick with the 2013 Tenere.
So before we get to what we're talking about today, what's the secret to keeping a bike in running condition through all that terrain, all that daily riding, all those miles?
Oh, Jim, I in retrospect, I could have been much, much, much better about it. The daily maintenance is absolutely so vital. Like when I do the quick safety and maintenance courses with the guys, I'm just like, listen, just check from front to back, always check your tire pressure, check the tread depth, see if there's anything in the tires, check that your spokes are all okay, check your chain tension, check your oil, check your coolant, check your brakes, and all of these things, there's a list, but they take 10 minutes, and That's the way to avoid problems, Keep your chain lubricated, keep it at the right tension. These conversations get very boring, but I've realized traveling so far that you've just got to do it. Like if you're in the Sahara, you don't ignore that sand that's in the chain for the next week. Or if you're in the Saladu Uni salt flats, you don't ignore that salt that's all over the bike. And it's easy to do, you have a lazy night or something, but it's better to clean up these things and deal with them in advance. And then the bikes will run for longer, of course.
It's almost cliched, saying that when you're saying check the tire pressure. But it makes sense because I guess one of the reasons you're recommending this is while you're doing this, you're checking over your whole bike. You're going to spot things that are a problem down the road.
Absolutely. And the tire pressure one, I brought it up on purpose because it's a cliche, but it's true. For example, if your tires are too soft, your bike is not running right. It's going all over the road or wherever you are. Also, you're losing power because, you're pulling along a bit of rubber along the road that's unnecessary. And that's just one example. It's the same with the brakes. If the brakes are worn, it's like all the small things. And obviously the big things like the oil and that's obvious, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to keep on top of those things.
Well, we're talking about deep trouble today. We're going to step back in time just a little bit, a couple of years. Can you set this up? What were you doing, where you were, and what was the plan?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, Jim. This was during our circumnavigation. Obviously, you've been interviewing me for about 100 years, Jim. We did Africa first, of course. I did, circumnavigated that. And then it was on to South and Central America. So, this was the section where we'd already done the whole of South America, we'd done the whole of Central America, and we were going through up to Panama. Now, you know the whole thing about the Darien Gap, don't you, Jim? Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So we flew our bike into Panama because at that stage we didn't have permission to go into the Darien.
So just the Darien just talk about the Darien for those that don't know.
Yeah, the Darien it's an area of 150 kilometers. It's world famous with bikers. It's just a section between Panama and Colombia where it's just a jungle. And it's been my absolute obsession for years and years and years. I'm sure you've heard me talking about it. I'm sure you've interviewed me about it. Just trying to get the bike through there. But at that stage, when we were circumnavigating, we didn't have permission. After that, we got permission to go through the Darien from the governor of the Darien and, believe it or not, the president of Colombia. And they gave Kathy permission to film in there. So we were absolutely super excited about that. I mean, it's a once in a million. I'd say about 6 to 8 motorbikes have made it through there since 1970, and some of it's debatable. So, I mean, really, a really exciting thing to do. And then COVID came along. So we got caught up over here. So that was the situation, but not before we had a very scary time in Panama, Jim. Yeah.
You're flying in, correct? Flying your bike in.
Yeah, which is unusual for us because, as you know, we ride everywhere we possibly can, and if we got to cross seas, we go on ferries or we find our way. So, but yeah, because of the problem of the Darien, we got through, and it was fine. The bike came out fine. It was really strange, Jim. You have a whole load of papers to collect. Now, we're talking about deep trouble. And one thing I can honestly say is that deep trouble can actually happen when you least expect it. And I guess that's why it's deep trouble. Because everybody we speak to, you're going through Colombia. Okay, this and that. And, and then you're going through here. And it's other countries you hear about. And Venezuela, the problems there. And, there are cliched countries around the world for adventure riders. Iran, Afghanistan, blah, blah, blah. Panama is never on the radar. I mean, Panama has a thriving American and Canadian population down there. There's a lot of expats, and you don't hear about much trouble over there, Jim. So when we hit deep trouble in Panama, it was a shock.
You flew in, as we said, because you're going around the Darien Gap. You fly in your bike. Yep. Spencer, you've been doing this for a long time. You know what papers you need. You fully get border crossings.
I absolutely do, Jim, and that's one bee in my bonnet that I do have.
Now, when this happened a few years back, I spoke with Spencer immediately after they escaped from Panama. Spencer managed to get to a phone and call me, and that conversation not only chronicled the event right after it happened, but it also captured the grittiness, even the fear of the moment. This is that recording. this is an alarming story for travelers, to be sure. Spencer Conway and his girlfriend Kathy are doing a circumnavigation of Central America, then the USA and Canada for filming that they're doing. They flew their motorcycle from Bogota into Colombia. Now, this is Spencer's 127th country on the same bike. I'm not sure how many countries he's done overall, but that itself tells you that they are accustomed to dealing with the importation of the motorcycle, the border crossing paperwork in general. They work as a team. Kathy is the camera person. Spencer is the on-screen personality. So we're talking about two experienced, competent travelers. And although they did all their paperwork, they crossed all the T's, dotted all their I's, packaged everything up just like it should be, one thing they didn't do, that was to anticipate being caught up in a major criminal operation where Spencer's bike was held for ransom and his life was threatened. They barely got out of Panama, some would say escaped, when I spoke with them here. Are you good there?
Yeah, I'm actually in a hotel reception, but I've asked them not to let anybody in, so hopefully it'll be fairly quiet.
So Spencer, where are you now?
Yeah, I'm in Costa Rica at the moment, having left Panama, having some problems there, which I'll tell you about. I'm starting my third circumnavigation, so obviously I've done Africa and South America. So now it's Central America, USA, Alaska, and Canada, all the way around the coast.
And you've just started out when you ran into a problem.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, because I finished South America and obviously starting Central now. The plan was to do the Darien Gap on the bike, but I can't do that till January. So we ended up flying from Bogota, Colombia to Panama.
So you flew into Panama. Now, this is your 127th country on the Tenere. 127 countries. Right. I mean, Spencer, man, that's just, it's incredible. And you fly into Panama, which is, like, by most people's standards, sort of a comfortable place to go, a place where you don't expect any trouble, but that's not what you experienced. When did it start to go wrong?
Oh, absolutely. It started to go wrong right from the beginning. Just to explain, obviously, I didn't go through a normal customs check. The bike was on an aeroplane. So you can imagine the checks are quite stringent. So basically what happened was I went to clear the bike. I filled in all the necessary forms. And as you're aware, I've traveled quite a lot. I've been, through these sort of customs over 100 times. So I'm really, really, really careful about my paperwork. I knew there were 4 papers to fill in. So I got them all done. I got the bike out. I had the final paper to fill in, which I did. They were all stapled together. I handed them through a window. The woman put the final stamp on. She passed it back through the window, and she said, "You're free to leave the airport." I left the airport, and I drove about 30 kilometers, and I was stopped immediately. And I just have to tell you, there was a bike rally going on, and there were at least 50 bikes going through that border, and they only stopped me. So first of all, I thought, okay, that's a bit strange. The second thing and most important is they always ask for passport and then papeles para la moto, papers for the motorbike. That's the standard setup. They didn't do that. They stopped me, and the first thing the guy said was, "Where is your," and it was this certain piece of paper. So I took out my papers because I knew I had it, and it was gone. Now, I didn't know at the time, but apparently, and I've been told this by the Panamanian consulate, so I mean, that can be followed up. They said there is dodginess going on. So what I think it was happened was that they phoned through, and the woman, when I handed in the final piece, she removed that paper, phoned through. It's the first time in my whole life, in 11 years of riding the motorbike, that they asked for a specific paper. So it was missing. The chap said to me straight away, "That's $3,000. So I went, "No, I have done it. You can phone the airport. You can confirm that I filled in this paper." They said no. They separated me and Kathy. They took me into a room. They kept me there for 6 hours, and I asked for water, and they said no. It was absolutely absurd. They even said to Kathy, "How would you feel if your husband disappeared?" Okay, this is not a kind of thing that a customs officer says. So I knew we were in a lot of trouble. So I knew that this paper had been taken. I knew that something was going on here, so I refused.
So hang on, Spencer. So who's questioning you and where?
Okay, this is at a roadblock, and these guys are police. And one of them is supposed to be customs. Now, what I also didn't understand was that customs officer was at the airport. And when I got to that roadblock, he was there. So that was also really strange. So now I'm stuck with the police, okay? I'm stuck with them, and they've got me in a room, and they've told Kathy, how do you feel if your husband would go missing? The first thing he said was $3,000 for this paper. So I said, I'm not paying. I refuse to pay. So they said, okay, well, we're taking your bike anyway because it's illegal. I said, listen, how can I possibly get through an international airport, go through all my paperwork, get the 4 papers? And he went, it's this paper. And he handed me the exact paper that I filled in. And obviously an empty one. He was showing me the one I was supposed to fill. It was the exact paper I filled in, and it was supposed to be stapled to those other 4. So anyway, they took the bike, and they started getting very aggressive. I'm not going to go into it. It was horrible. It was the first time I heard effing gringo. And, in my whole time, my 1.5 years, 2 years in South and Central America, absolutely loved every minute of it. So got in a bit of a panic. So I asked if I could make a phone call. One of the guys who was not involved was in the road, and he gave me his phone. I made a phone call to my father, and I said, call the British Foreign Office because there's something going on here. So then he did, and the Foreign Office traced this telephone and rang it back 5 minutes later. So I handed it to the customs officer, and they explained that it was the Foreign Office, the British Foreign Office, and what was going on. They managed to persuade the guys to take us into a town, but they wanted to take me in a truck. So I said, no, I refused to go in a truck with them. So the Foreign Office spoke to them again, and they agreed to take the bike into the main town that was near to the airport. So I followed on the bike, and they had a truck on the back and the front of me. So they put the bike into a compound.
And where was Kathy for this?
Kathy was on the back of the bike with me. When we went to the compound, before we got there, I told her to get off and go. So she left with the passports and everything. I go into this room. They lock the door. And there were 3 of them in there. And they tried to make me sign a paper to sign my bike over. So I refused. They said, okay, give me your passport. I didn't have it. I said, I don't have my passport on me. So they said, well, you can go to the bank and pay $3,000. I said, how am I supposed to get $3,000? And I'm not paying you. So they said, okay, we're keeping the bike. So anyway, I said, look, I'm going back to the hotel. I need to, the room where Kathy is, I need to just sort my head out, etc. I left 30 or 40 meters down the road. They knew I had to walk back to my room. They could have offered me a lift in there. They came out in a car and said, get in to this car. So I said, no, I'm not getting in. And I flagged down a taxi. So then I got in there, got sorted, got my room. About an hour or so later, 4 guys came past in a car. I recognized one of them from the roadblock. So I was like, oh my God, there's something going on here, Kathy. This is unbelievable. So when I went the next morning, instead of going, oh my God, the British embassy is involved, etc., they started what I can only say is an interrogation. My name, my age, my height, my weight. They even made me take my T-shirt off to show them the tattoos that I had. And they took a description of my tattoos. Does this sound like a traffic offense? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, this is so this is, they've got you in a room again by yourself.
By myself. And also after that, they refused to let me use a phone.
Spencer, just hang on. So we get a better idea of what's going, like how aggressive they are. Like, I know you don't want to get into too much of it, but sort of give an idea of like exactly how intimidating this really is.
Okay. As you know, I'm well traveled. I don't really get scared easily, but I think the main one was when they said that to Kathy. How would you feel if your husband disappears? Because you can't really get much worse than that, can you?
No.
I mean, that's basically saying he's going to die.
And when you find about it afterwards, and then they grab you again, you've got this in the back of your mind.
Yeah, well, this was the problem, because Kathy was saying to me, do not go back to that compound to get the bike, because they're going to take you or something, okay? And I was like, okay, well, the Foreign Office, no. Kathy contacted the Dutch embassy, but they wouldn't help her. So we just wanted to keep her hidden away. Now, the strangest thing was I also phoned the Panamanian consulate from the room I was in, and this was the quote she gave me. This is the Panamanian consulate. I told her it was the police and the Aduan. And she said, Mr. Conway, this is very cryptic, sometimes the police are not police. So make what you will of that, okay?
That's
So,
an official
anyway.
response?
This is an official response, okay? Now, the other thing that's very upsetting is that the people that, I won't name them, that flew my bike over, they went straight onto social media and said, this is a message for all bikers. Make sure that you have all your correct paperwork, okay? So what they were doing, and I totally understand it, they were trying to cover themselves,
Mm-hmm.
saying that I hadn't done the correct paperwork,
Like-
and that's why I got in trouble.
Yeah, like you'd made a
Okay.
mistake.
Yeah, like I'd made a mistake, which 100% I didn't. The paper was taken away, and it was all a setup.
But even if
So-
you did, even if you had made a mistake and didn't have the paper, to take you into a room and treat you the way they did, that's just that's not how it's done.
Thank you very much. I totally agree. And I mean, it does it sound like an interview? No, it sounds like an interrogation.
No,
I mean, what do my tattoos of Africa have to do with the piece of paper?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it was absolutely absurd. So I'll tell you another thing. You'll find this so difficult to believe. So we're back in the room. We haven't got anywhere with the motorbike. I've had the interrogation. So we go outside to get a taxi, okay? I open the door of the taxi. He's parked there. He's parked there. I open the door of the taxi, and there are no handles on the inside of the door. So I think, as Kathy's about to get in the other side, the taxi driver gets out, hands his keys to 3 guys, and says, these guys are going to take you. Can you believe this?
Wow. So just to be clear, that handle's missing on the taxi cab. That's not a thing that you've seen before.
I've never seen it before. And I mean, it's very difficult to get out once you're in, isn't it?
That's just unbelievably creepy. I mean,
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It gets worse. It gets worse. So I grabbed Kathy and we just ran straight back in. So this was a kidnapping, basically, wasn't it?
mhm.
Now, it gets even more absurd. After that, we go into the room and I said to Kathy, okay, this is it. You are not going out again. I'm going to go to the supermarket. I'll get us food for the evening and I'll come back. Okay, fine. I go to the supermarket. I pay at the counter. I walk out. They arrest me for shoplifting. Okay?
Wow.
So, yeah, listen. So this is getting on the margins of the absurd. So I said to the guy, my receipt's in that bin there, as you're walking out of the shop. So he won't go and look for the receipt. And he won't allow me to look for it. So I look over to the counter to the woman that has just put my products through, and she goes, no lo sé, I don't know. As though she's never seen me before.
Wow.
So this guy makes me pay, okay, again, for all my products. Right, so I head off down the road. A woman from Aduan, finally I get in touch. I get through, and eventually these guys who have been so aggressive realize they're getting nothing, and I managed to get my bike, okay? And this 3,000 then went down to 1,000, and then it got all aggressive because of who I'd contacted. And then they realized that they were in a totally sticky situation and that they weren't going to get away with this one. So they had to release the bike. Okay? So the bike is released. I go back to the room, and this is where everything was confirmed. 2 people turned up, and one of them was Aduan Customs. And she said, you have been targeted by a criminal gang. So I went, oh, okay. Everything makes sense. She said, they are here, around here. You need to leave in 10 minutes. So I said, pardon? They said, you've got to leave the country in 10 minutes. I said, okay, well, my wife's actually sleeping. I need to go and sort her out. They waited for me. And I went back and I said, look, my wife is too scared to do the 50 kilometers to the border. Because if you just told us we're targeted by a criminal gang, they can get us on the way out again. So they agreed to drive us to the border. So we had Aduan drive us to the border, and the paperwork was done in like 2 minutes, and we were through. So It's the most absurd story I've ever come across. It's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. But that's it in a nutshell, really.
What happened with your bike? How'd you get your bike to the border?
I rode it.
Oh, I see.
So they had the Adawan, they had the customs next to us with a truck and an armed guy, and they saw us straight through.
What is Adwan?
Customs. Sorry, customs.
Customs. So it's customs comes and tells you that you're in danger. They have no authority here.
It was so absurd that the people that were questioning me were not in uniform. It's a story that I will never ever get my head around, because I don't know who were the dodgy ones, who were the decent ones. It was just the weirdest situation. And to me, I'm totally in the dark. I'm totally in the dark. But I mean, the fact that, number one, the Panamanian consulate said, police are sometimes not police is the weirdest thing. And also the fact that they told me straight that I've been targeted by a criminal gang. But I don't. I suspect that it was the customs involved, some dodgy customs.
You think it was actually like part of the government or crooked people in customs?
I can't say that on radio. I know I had that paper. I recognized it when he showed it. I know I filled it in. I handed it through that glass partition. She stamped it, handed it all back. That one mistake of not looking just before I drove out was my error. But I didn't expect someone to steal the paper. And the fact that as soon as I got to that roadblock, they asked for that paper.
We're going to take a quick break while I tell you about a couple things. Stay with us. We're going to hear the rest of this, and then we're back to Spencer in Mexico. Well, you want to plan something for August? This August 23rd through 25th, Overland Expo, Mountain West in Loveland, Colorado, at the Ranch Events Complex. They say it's the greatest collection of overland adventure companies in the world, with more than 300 gear vendors. So clearly you can outfit your motorcycle there. You can meet all these companies that are displayed there, which is pretty amazing in itself. But you can also get inspired by visiting the authors and filmmakers and creators and other travelers that are hosting workshops and classes and sharing stories from the road. There is so much going on there. It'll keep your head swirling for those 3 days. You got to get your tickets and camping passes. You can camp there as well. You can spend the whole weekend there in advance online at overlandexpo.com. So that's this August 23rd to 25th, the Ranch in Loveland, Colorado. Overlandexpo.com is the website. Anytime you're dealing with them, throw in there that you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. Overlandexpo.com. Nothing is better than having the proper equipment for riding. And when it comes to riding in the cold, the best cold weather socks in the world are called Pearlie's Possum Socks. Pearlie's Possum Socks are the brainchild of riders Duke and Margot Lambert. They invented this knit specifically for riding motorcycles. They have several options to choose from the very tall socks, which are the ones that I really love. They come a long way up your leg to fit well in the boots, to much shorter ones. The most important thing is the materials that Pearlie's Possum Socks are made of. They use the most incredible blend of natural fibers I've ever come across for outdoor gear. This is a blend of merino wool and possum fur. Both materials are incredibly warm, not stuffy. They make a ultra soft sock that feels just so great on the skin. No itchiness like you get with regular wool. And wow, do they work incredibly well. Incredible at keeping your feet warm, incredible at wicking away moisture from your skin, incredible at never smelling because of your feet. Seriously, these are perfect socks for us riders. I wear them year round. And when you slide one on your foot, you'll instantly know what I'm saying when I say they're super soft. They are the official sock of Adventure Rider Radio just because I'm just so impressed with them. I mean, I've tried loads of socks for outdoors activities over the years, and never have I found a pair that I'm impressed so much that I get excited about. PearliesPossumSocks.com is the website. Anytime you're dealing with them, throw in there that you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. PearliesPossumSocks.com. Well, I was riding the other day in some fairly rough terrain when my front wheel caught a rock that was sort of hidden in the mud. The bike zigged, I zagged, but my feet stayed planted. I regained my balance and then continued through. It was my IMS Products foot pegs that helped keep my feet planted, connected to the bike in that moment of upset. It was those IMS Products foot pegs that gave me that quarter or half second time to regain myself. IMS Products makes a full line of adventure motorcycle foot pegs ranging from their large ADV 1 and 2 on down in size to the core Enduro series. The pegs are all made of super tough 17.4 cast certified stainless steel, designed specifically for our style of riding with features like watershed design, which prevents mud and debris from jamming in the foot peg, which will loosen your grip between your foot and the peg. The staggered tooth design, which gives you that incredible connection between your boot and your peg without tearing the sole apart. And that's the connection that I just explained had saved me in that little rock incident. IMSproducts.com is the website. Anytime you're dealing with them, throw in there that you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. IMSproducts.com.
Clearly it's well organized. She pulls the paper at the airport. Somebody does, hands it back to you, tells you free to go, and then they pick you up down the way. And like you said, it's the same person that you saw at customs. So this is a pretty deep criminal activity.
Sure, absolutely it is. If it was just a one-off, okay? If it was a one-off rogue customs officer, we all go through it, don't we? Give me $20 or whatever. But it was the aggression, it was the organization, it was the holding of the bike, it was the when I told Kathy about describing my tattoos, they did everything except fingerprints. It was like being booked into jail. Literally, it was that ridiculous. On a positive note, what was so incredible about this was like the response from you guys. Honestly, all the bikers and everything. Greg Turp even arranged for bikers to come and protect us outside the hotel, as did another guy. And we had a bunch of bikers just turn up, and I must have had 500 messages. We were even offered money, flights, everything. From other bikers, even bikers that we haven't met. So it was so humbling. It really was. But to this day, I don't think I'm going to be able to explain this one away.
And clearly, it's not a country you're going to go back to.
I will go back. I think I'll go back on my own. I'd like to say something about that. I cannot judge Panama. I cannot say anything to anybody about how beautiful or how not it is, because I literally got in on the main road and things just started happening. And then we just got filtered out 4 days later after all of this palaver. So the fact that there's a criminal gang, it doesn't say anything about the country. So I don't want to put anybody off that country. It could happen anywhere to anybody. It was just really unfortunate.
Do you have any reason to believe that they picked you in particular, Spencer Conway, or was it a random motorcyclist?
I have no idea, I'm afraid. I think it was random. I think probably whoever it was. You see, I can't even say it was that lady because that's not fair on radio. It was handed through that hole and someone took that paper. So I don't know if they just thought big bike, rich guy, whatever, Because it was within 30 seconds. We're taking your bike. We need 3,000. Not you need to fill in this paper. You need to do this. You need to go through that process. Like you said, even if that paper had gone missing or I had made a mistake, there is no excuse for treating someone like that, is there?
What's really particularly worrisome, though, when I asked you about did they target you? If they targeted you, Spencer Conway, because you're known on television or whatever the case is, if they targeted you, I can see that. And that almost, I hate to say it, Spencer, but it almost makes me feel a little better. The thought that it could be random means that today, tomorrow, someone else could be experiencing the same thing.
That is the exact reason I wanted to come and talk with you, because not to be negative, because you know me, I have quite a bad streak. I don't want to be negative, but I wanted people to know that it could happen to them. Okay, I'll tell you another strange thing. The cargo company that sent my bike over, I said, look, I filled in all that paperwork, and I was quite livid. I said, because, you're supposed to see me through this process. And they said, oh, we checked at the airport, and there's no sign of you on that paper. So I said, are you actually telling me that you don't use computers? Are you telling me that my name is not on that computer? Even if the paper's gone missing, I've got to be on that computer. She said, no, there's no sign of you. So I'm like, oh. So I said to her, so I didn't fly from Bogota. I was being a bit cynical. So I didn't fly from Bogota to Panama. I made it up, hey? And I just drove my bike through with no paperwork. I mean, it was absurd. So the woman who did the freighting, she just called me back and said, oh, they've got no sign of you being there and doing that particular paperwork.
You're talking about the airport, the customs itself.
Yeah, at the releasing, the holding area where they keep the bike. And I mean, I went through the whole normal rigmarole. They unwrapped the bike because they tape it up and all that. They searched it. They did all the normal things. They did all the clearance. They did my passport stamp. Everything was fine.
Well, as I said, that was a few years ago, right after it happened, talking with Spencer. Now this takes us back to today, and he's in Mexico. Did you ever get a clear explanation from any officials? What happened? Did they investigate it?
Absolutely nothing. And also through the internet and even through the people that imported our bike for us, they took a horrible outlook. They said that we forgot the paper. And, had a bit of a backfire on that with some people. But I know what we did. I know what happened. So, I mean, that's the situation.
The thing is, when you say that some people said that you forgot the paper, it was at the customs that posted on Facebook or on social media, sort of using you as an example. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it wasn't just them. It was the import company. You see, the company from Colombia to Panama, they've been working together for years. And of course, I won't name them. But yeah, that is exactly what happened. They went on social media and they wrote a post about how you must remember to make sure that you have all your paperwork when you're going through a country. And it was an instant dig. I'm not sure why they did it, if they wanted to distance themselves from what had happened. Another mistake I made, Jim, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. When you say, why are you coming to the country? Oh, I'm coming to film here to show how beautiful this country is, which I sometimes do, yeah? Mm-hmm. And it works. I think it backfired in Panama because they said, why are you here? I said, no, I'm filming for Travel Channel and doing my own bit, promoting the country. And I think they just thought, oh, money.
Oh, right. Figure.
And that was it. That's what started the ball rolling. So I think my mistake first, by not bragging, but just, saying what we're doing. And second, so then that set the ball in motion. And then me being a little bit rude to them made it worse. And I'm not excusing them. You can't kidnap people's bikes and try and kidnap them, can you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no excuse for it. So, yeah, terrible situation. And of course, once again, I spoke to a lot of expatriates. I don't know what you want to call them, foreigners in Panama, Americans, etc. And, of course, they get very upset if you criticize the country that they love. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's had a little bit of a negative vibe on media, but I'm a bit bigger than that. I know exactly what happened.
I know that when I talked to you just when this happened, you were
Yes.
just through this. You were very shaken. Kathy was very shaken.
Yeah.
And you said, and I asked you, I said, will you go back? And you said yes, but you said Kathy may not. Have you been back?
No, we haven't been back to Panama. Mm-hmm. But we would. Yeah, definitely. And I can speak for Kathy, who's also probably at this moment coming down with dengue as well. That's why she's not here, Jim. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, of course we'd go back. I'd go back at the drop of a hat. I'd go back to every country I've been to. It's strange. Just before this interview, I got a message from my brother in South Africa, and he said, I had a dream about you, and I just can't believe what you've done. And I'd just like to say it's just fantastic. I don't know how you go around these countries. If my clutch cable broke in the middle of nowhere, I'd be finished, Spencer. And I said, Simon, to be honest, brother, I would start tomorrow morning and I'd do it all again. Mm. And I would, the highs and the lows. Because even the deep trouble, Jim, I say the biggest thing about deep trouble is, number one, stay as calm as you possibly can. And number two, realize that it's going to affect you a bit in the future, mentally, definitely. And number three will be the retrospect thing. So what could I have done differently? How could I have made it more calm?
Mm-hmm.
How could I have avoided this? So you go through a lot of emotions, and it's a learning experience. It's a learning experience, totally. I mean, one simple thing I could have done again, Jim, when she passed that paperwork back to me, just spend 15 seconds counting those 10 bits of paper,
Right.
But I didn't. And I was tired and I was hot. And when someone goes, that's it, you're done, you're through. You're elated. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Your heart
just
rises. Yay, next country, let's do it.
Yeah.
Kathy, we're through. Yay. And
Well,
I went off guard.
I want to come back to that. I want to talk because this whole point of deep trouble is going back and looking at this in hindsight. But just let me jump back to that, asking you about going back to Panama. And you said, yes, you'd go back. Is there not some apprehension, the thought of going back into a place that it wasn't just corruption? It wasn't just that you ran into a criminal gang on the street or you got mugged I mean, these would be horrible things, but this was really organized at quite a high level that you can't even figure out. And even to have the officials, I mean, I remember when I talked to you before, you said that somebody from the government told you that, Spencer, sometimes police are not always police. And you said, right. Like, what's that supposed to mean? So at that sort of level, does that not shake your confidence of returning to a country like that?
Yeah, it absolutely does. But to counter that, I mean, yes, there's corruption and there's something going on. But it was customs that nailed us, but it was also customs and army that got us out. So, I mean, it could have been worse. I suppose I have to look at it as a glass half full rather than half empty. And quite frankly, I'd love to pop through that customs, make sure I've got every single paper, and meet up with those fine three fellows that caused us so much grief, and give them a smile and say, here's all my paperwork. See what happens this time.
But what if you're a marked man? What if they hate you so much from that, and the fact they didn't get their $3,000 and they wasted a lot of time on it?
Oh my God. Okay, so be it. I hope Kathy doesn't listen to this, and which she will as soon as it comes out. No, she's as brave, if not braver than me, and we've always taken the attitude that individuals cannot ruin a country, and individuals cannot ruin an experience. I mean, it's the same when I had that shooting in Kenya. As you know, you interviewed me about that.
Yeah.
You can't let individuals ruin a group experience, because traveling is a group experience. You're getting lots of different cultures, lots of different people, lots of different levels of poverty up to rich, religious up to not, just every kind of person. So I prefer to look at it like that. 99.9% of people are wonderful, and you don't want to tar a country or a place with any brush. And I mean, places like the Congo, etc. Many, many countries, Jim, customs is a dodgy area. I mean, let's be honest, we're not children. It's a fact. There's a lot of dodgery goes on, a lot of, if you slide me $100, you can come through in 5 minutes. It still happens all over the world.
But I get what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense what you're saying, that it doesn't taint the whole country, it doesn't paint the picture, it doesn't describe the whole country, but it only takes one person to end your day. And that is true. But then you've got to keep a positive note that maybe, it happened on that occasion and the next time it's totally different. It's like anywhere you travel. I mean, I've been in some countries, and I've had absolutely the most amazing time in the world. And I've gone back on another occasion and I've had a terrible time. And it's not necessarily the individuals I meet. It might be something to do with my frame of mind, but it can also be the circumstances. Everything changes every day in every place. You can't predict these things. So have you ever been to a place, it doesn't have to be a country, it could even be a city or a town. Have you ever been to a place that you think, I just wouldn't go back?
Ooh. That's a very difficult one. Possibly Makela de Zombo, the border in the jungle in the Congo. Possibly I wouldn't go back there again. But if someone gave me a ticket and some money, I would.
I don't think you represent the average person, though, Spencer. I'm sorry, but I don't. And also, there is something to be said for, I mean, you know, if you do something like what you do for 14 years, you have a certain level. Well, first of all, you have a certain sixth sense for things, for seeing and understanding how things are working and what might be coming together around you. But you also have a certain, what I say?
Stupidity. Is that what you mean?
It could be that. What are you doing to those dogs anyway?
Oh, I'm so sorry. They're outside.
Oh.
It's not my dogs. Is it ruining the sound?
No. We're good. But no, what I'm saying
it makes it more rustic.
Yeah, you build up a certain tolerance, I guess, is what it is, or a certain ability to deal with things that I think many other people wouldn't. So, I mean, like for someone like myself to sit and hear you describe this, it seems incredible. I know it may not seem to you to be incredible, to the thought of going back to a country that did that to you, but it just seems high risk, and maybe that is an amateur response or an uneducated person's response. You know, as far as uneducated is in the sense of traveling the world. You know, whereas I guess with your experience, you understand that really, as you said, 99.9% of the people are good, and you can go back with full confidence that you're going to have a good time.
No, for sure. I mean, yeah, possibly it's an attitude that I have, but I also do tell people every time I talk to them, I say, don't look at foreign office websites because it's just doom and gloom, and you'll end up not going anywhere. I mean, there's always a country alert. Don't go here because of this. Don't go here because of that. And you just hear these stories time and time again. People, like Lois Price going to Iran and how wonderful the people were. And it happens all the time. In fact, some of the countries that people scared me the most about, obviously Angola was one of them, because they had a 35, 40-year civil war. What a wonderful country and amazing people. So, I prefer to judge for myself. I think if you read too much or you overthink too much, it'll limit your horizons, and you really won't want to go anywhere.
But there are places like the cartel, like, in Mexico. You've just been all over Mexico. There are places like the cartels that operate that are truly dangerous.
Of course they're dangerous, Jim. But I mean, we met the cartel in Colombia. We went through an area where there were coca plantations. And so we were taking photos of the cocaine, and they came past in a big truck and they invited us for breakfast. And there was this long table, sat about 20 people, and they just brought all their guns out and put them on the table so that they had space, for their belt to sit down. And then we had breakfast with them. And they were fine. They were great with us. They just said to us, "What are you doing in this area?" And Kathy just said, "Oh no, we love to look around, and we want to see the natural side of Colombia and everything." And she said, "What do you do?" to the main chap, and he said, "Oh, I'm a religious leader." So we both nearly cracked up laughing. So Kathy goes, "Oh, okay. Well, what church are you?" And he said, "I don't believe in any churches. It's my own religion." We were like, "Oh my God." So yeah, anyway, we just stayed polite and stayed friendly, and they just were looking at us incredulously. And I went to the toilet, and when I went in, he came in and he said, "Why are you taking this lady around here?" And I said, "Oh, we're just, we're traveling through Colombia." And he was like, fantastic. And that was it. And they paid for our breakfast and we headed off. But they were 100% cartel. Now, of course, I'm not saying they're not going to kidnap you or they're not going to do this. But, Jim, with one block of cocaine, they make more money than 10 kidnappings of foreigners. So I think people worry about getting kidnapped in Mexico. It does happen. It does happen in Colombia, but it's kind of rare. And you'll find, I mean, did you hear about the two surfers very recently down here?
Oh, I did. I think I did just in the last few days.
Yeah, it was terrible. The two brothers, they went surfing, and unfortunately, and this is why I'll say it, it's drugs, Jim. That's what caused it.
Because they were involved?
These total drug addicts turned up, tried to rob these two Canadian guys, surfers, and tried to steal the wheels off their car. They were crystal meth addicts, which, it ruins any human being. And they confronted them. You're not stealing our tires, and they killed them both. But I mean, to be honest, I've seen streets in New York where everybody's a bloody zombie. So it depends on what area you go to and where you live. And obviously, because the source regions are Colombia and Mexico, etc., the source of the drugs, that people tend to blow it out of proportion. Whereas in other countries, it's just as bad.
Without, I certainly don't want to shed a negative light on the two Canadians and what happened to them. It's absolutely horrible. But is that part of your understanding or what you've learned by traveling and visiting so many places, of knowing what to do when, like how to act in certain situations?
Sure, absolutely. A lot of it comes down to, people will laugh at me, but gut feeling.
Yeah.
So when there's two of you, it's great as well, because you can kind of feed off each other. But I had a similar thing in Africa. You could drive into a town, and don't forget, you're on your bike, hey Jim, which is the most wonderful thing. And if you feel that something's not right, then you head off. You've missed that town, haven't you? That's about it. That's about it. But you might have missed a situation. And then there's the very obvious things that you would do in any city. Don't walk around in the middle of the night in areas that you don't know. Don't flash money to strangers, even though you're happy to meet them. If you see what I mean, stay a little bit reserved, stay a little bit back when you first meet people, and then suss it out from there.
But there is a learning process to this. I mean, I think of it as, I used to do wilderness trips. I used to guide them. And you get very used to spotting animals and things. And of course, I can spot a bald eagle on a tree, or I can spot a killer whale down the strait or something like that, where the people that are with me, they can't even see it at all. It's not because I have a special sense or anything like that. It's because I've trained myself to spot those small signs that reveal something greater. And I think that is what you have by traveling as much as you do. And so I think when someone goes to travel, they won't have those, what some people say, spidey senses to begin with. That's something you develop.
That's a fantastic analogy you've just given about the wildlife, Jim. It's exactly like that, isn't it? And I can add to that by saying you learn forever, don't you? I mean, you can say, Spencer, 14 years. 14 years with wildlife, you learn a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, sorry, wildlife is my biggest love in the world. So, you do get your spidey senses, or whatever you said it was, and you do become a better tracker, and you do become quicker at spotting things. And that analogy is brilliant, because traveling is the same. You can get a certain facial expression from someone. I don't go by the tattoos and the white vest and, do you know what I mean? The cliche, because I've met all those people and they're all fantastic. Everybody looks different. It's an attitude. It's a feeling. I suppose it comes with traveling.
Well, as you said, Kathy spotted the person on the phone, and there was something about the way he was looking at
Which
you
is
guys
amazing, isn't it?
and on the phone. And I can see that in my mind when you say it. I can see that would be something that she would pick up, because she knows there's something wrong with the way his body language.
Absolutely. And she's much more perceptive in that way than me. I tend to be like, the one that just brushes it off and goes, oh, don't be silly, you're imagining things.
Right.
But you're not imagining things.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think every time I've ever spoken to you, Jim, I use the word retrospect. And that's because life is learning, isn't it? Every day life is learning. So you can look at yesterday and go, oh, I could have done that differently. I could have done this differently. Traveling's the same. Being around people and changing situations all the time, it's the same. You're learning forever. And I mean, if you spoke to Sam Manicorn or Nick Sanders or any, long-term travelers, they will say, I still learn every single day, not just about motorcycles, but about people.
Yeah. Well, okay, so looking back, I know you mentioned the one thing. So we're reflecting back on what happened to you in Panama, and to try and learn from it and see, if you had changed some things, could you've had a different outcome? So that's sort of what we're doing, right?
Excellent. Yeah.
So looking back then, you mentioned about the first thing, I guess, being that paperwork thing, taking that few minutes, and that makes perfect sense to
Yes.
not get too excited. And it's funny because, like you're saying, you have 14 years and you still get excited when they tell you, yeah, you're good to go.
Of course you do, and then you drop your guard, don't you?
Yeah.
Because I mean, they even say it in a slightly more positive way, don't they? They're like, "Okay, you're ready to go,"
Mm-hmm.
and that raise in voice, and you're like, "Okay, this is it, great, all the paperwork's done, we can do it, let's go." And like you said, yes, 14 years, and I still got caught again, didn't I, Jim? So yeah, when people on the internet were saying, make sure you check your paperwork, I will counter that by saying, you are correct, everybody. Make sure you triple check your paperwork.
Right.
And also do it 15 seconds before you leave.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you know what you've got. And even more impressive, if you're that organized, photocopy the whole bloody damn lot of them just before you leave. And stick them in Kathy's boot or whatever.
Or even snap photos with your phone.
Yes, all of that. Do the backup. I've been quite weak on that kind of thing. I mean, you know that we still don't have a GPS, Jim.
No, I didn't know you still don't have one.
No,
I know. No, I guess I do because you've always said you don't like GPS. And
yeah, we don't have a Garmin. We don't have a GPS. So these things this is another thing when you said to me, what would I do differently? 100% be more organized. 100% have everything on a memory stick. Have everything double copied and double backed up. Because I mean, you can have it there hidden on the internet. You can bring it up for someone if needs be. So double, triple checking things. Because customs, to me, I've really enjoyed customs. I love customs, but you've got to go there with the attitude that this is going to take all day, but if it takes an hour, what a bonus! And then you enjoy the interactions, you enjoy the people and everything. But yeah, so as we're talking about deep trouble, make sure 10 seconds before you leave the country, you've sorted out your papers.
The next one.
Oh, sorry, and to interrupt again, keep your calm. And Kathy would be going, yes, Jim, let me talk now. Because she's right. She's like Jane Bond. She's absolutely so calm. And it is the way to go. It frustrates other people. It flusters them. If they see you being very polite and very calm, they're wondering to themselves, okay, who are these people? They're not the easy target that we thought they were.
Yeah.
So manners and strength at the same time. Manners being first, most important.
And it sounds like you've got a good combination between you and Kathy. You'll almost help level each other then.
Oh, don't worry. We'll start arguing with each other in front of them. we'll have a domestic row in the middle of the road, and they'll be like, "That's enough.
Pay attention to us now."
Yeah, please. We're the customs.
Right.
Yeah, but this is my wife. She's more important.
So keep cool, ultra cool. Yeah. What else? Yeah. What else could you have done that may have given you an upper hand, or at least a little bit of a leeway?
In that particular situation with Panama, I don't think anything, Jim. Because as I said to you right at the beginning, it was one of those unexpected ones. If I was in Congo or Afghanistan, I think I might have had a heightened sense of worry, urgency, and maybe double check things a bit more. So I guess don't walk into things that you think are comfortable. Don't assume it.
Right. So you sort of let your guard down because it was Panama, because you thought this is Panama. We know Panama's a good country. I would say good country, but I mean, you think there's a lot of Western connections there.
Exactly. You do. You think it's one of the least ones I need to worry about, So, just keep your guard up everywhere, but don't be paranoid, because that's going to ruin your trip, isn't it?
Let me ask you about when you're being interrogated, though, because you had an attitude there of you're not going to break. Now, is that something that you think helps or hinders?
I think there could be a turning point, Jim. I mean, to be honest, there were two situations. There was one, Kathy was there, so that changed the whole dynamics. I just wanted to get out of there, and if we had to pay, I would have paid. But I think it gets to a stage where if you stay strong, 99.9% of the time it works, but I've got no idea how I would have reacted if they turned and it had got violent. So if they'd actually beaten me, right. I don't know if I can't say as an individual whether I would have got more determined and gone to jail and tried to photograph myself injured or something like that, or whether I would have run like a rabbit and tried to get out of there. So it's a situation that didn't get to that level, and I'm not really sure how I would have reacted. But I mean, I suggest anybody who's worried about, if they get to a level where they're worried about their physical safety, give up everything. Simple as that. Give up the bike. You can start again. You can, but violence, you don't forget about these things.
We as humans learn from our experiences. And of course, that's very important. It's been important in our evolutions. It's still important today that we learn from things because it helps you understand what's dangerous and what's not. That experience could easily tell you that Panama is dangerous, yet so many motorcycles go through Panama every year.
Yeah, exactly. It's the fight or flight response, isn't it? It's been thousands of years. And yes, I mean, there'll be a motorcyclist going through it this very minute and having a wonderful time in Panama. There's different levels. If you, for example, let's go back to Congo. I don't know why I always do. It's got one of the toughest roads in the world, and anyone can argue with me. And magnificent riding and extremely difficult, but so pleasurable. It's when you meet the wrong people that things can turn unpleasurable, isn't it? Adventure motorcycling is about the views. It's about the animals. For me, it's not about clocking up miles at all. It's not about the number of countries at all. It's about the experience. So just to keep calm, keep level-headed, almost get your sixth sense. Your sixth sense is vital. And the more you do it, when you were talking about the tracking with the animals, that really that hit me hard with that. It kind of soaks into your psyche, doesn't it? It soaks into your character. Yeah. You suddenly become better at it, and you realize, well, I've been out here for years. Of course I'm better than Mr. City Man. So it is the same. So being more aware, but staying open. That's the main thing for me. If you're traveling around in a mood and you're constantly worried about someone's reaction, or you're worried about where you're going to stay, or you're worried about your fuel, or if it becomes a constant theme, you should go home because you've missed the whole point of it.
I know when I talked to you back when this happened, you said Kathy was very shaken from it. And as I said, I think you said at the time that she probably wouldn't go back. And I wish Kathy was here right now. It's unfortunate that she's picked up what you must have given her.
That sounds very rude.
That sounds terrible, isn't it? But what changed, do you think? What do you think changed for Kathy from this experience, if anything?
Time is a healer, I guess. It's the old one, isn't it? Because, I mean, we had that situation, also we got mugged in Colombia with the knives and that. And it's totally, totally true. You do look behind you after you've been mugged. So you walk around, and it doesn't matter where you are, a certain noise, and it gets into your system, and you're really wary for a while. And I'd say shell-shocked in a way. And then over time, it heals. Because you've met another 1,000 people since then who didn't mug you and were wonderful and helped you by the side of the road and invited you to their house and, made a massive meal for you. So those things overcome it over time, and the memory diminishes.
What's the underpinning belief that you have that makes you go back to that thought process?
That most people are great. And that we're all exactly the same. We're just worrying about our food, how our kids doing at school, have they got their uniform, how's my grandma, hope she's not too ill, hope my wife's well. Just every single day-to-day things that we all really cherish, and we're all exactly the same.
Spencer, thank you so much. Tell Kathy to get well very quickly. Thank you.
I will do. Thank you so much as well, Jim.
That was Spencer Conway while in Mexico. His website is spencer-conway.com, where you'll find some of those videos that he and Kathy are shooting of their adventures. Spencer has 2 books he's written. You'll see those as well at his website, spencer-conway.com. We've got those links in the show notes on our website, adventureriderradio.com. And in fact, we've got a section dedicated to our Deep Trouble series. So you can go to Adventure Rider Radio, click on the Deep Trouble series link to hear more stories like this. Hey, I just want to remind you that this episode has been brought to you by Green Chili Adventure Gear, greenchiliadv.com, Motobreeze Chain Oiler at motobreeze.com, and Best Rest Products at cyclepump.com. And we'd really appreciate it if anytime you're dealing with these companies, anytime email or otherwise, let them know you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. Well, that about wraps up another episode of Adventure Rider Radio, and we sure hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we did making it. Special thanks to our producer, Elizabeth Martin, and of course to you. Thank you so much for listening and being a part of the show. While I have you here before you go, the show is built on a model of advertising and listener support. We need your support. Drop by our website, adventureriderradio.com. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it. We'd really appreciate it if you consider the patron option. That way you can give a small amount each month and help support the show on a regular basis. Well, now it's time to get out there and ride your bike if you can. My name is Jim Martin. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you next week.
Hi, I'm Annette Bergman, and you're listening to Adventure Rider Radio.